What if following orders exactly as they were given ended up teaching your boss a lesson she'd never forget? It's funny how sometimes the best revenge doesn't come from anger or shouting. It comes quietly, through logic, patience, and a little poetic justice. My name's Claire Matthews. I'm 36 years old, and for the last 10 years, I've worked as a custodian in a mid-sized office building downtown. It's not glamorous. I don't wear a fancy suit or sit behind a desk with a nameplate. My uniform is a faded navy shirt, comfortable sneakers, and a pair of gloves that have seen better days. But you know what? I like my job. It's peaceful, predictable. The world is quiet when I start work. Just the hum of fluorescent lights, the soft click of my cartwheels on the tile, and the smell of lemon cleaner hanging in the air. I come in before sunrise, long before the employees arrive. I clean bathrooms, empty trash cans, wipe counters, vacuum carpets. By the time the first cup of coffee is poured, the building looks spotless, as if no one had ever made a mess at all. It's an invisible kind of work, but there's something satisfying about it. I don't need recognition or praise. I just take pride in leaving things better than I found them. Over the years, I've learned that cleaning isn't just about sweeping up dirt. It's about noticing things. A custodian becomes kind of like a silent observer. You learn people's habits without meaning to. You notice which desks are always messy, which workers forget to throw away their coffee cups, who eats lunch at their computer, who keeps plants alive and who doesn't. I'm not nosy, but I care about doing my job right. That means paying attention. And one of the things I noticed early on was that sometimes papers end up on the floor. Not a lot. Just the occasional sheet under a desk, beside a trash can, or caught between chair wheels. Now, to me, those papers always raised a question. Were they trash that missed the bin? Or important documents that fell by accident? It's not always obvious. Some looked like rough drafts, but others had printed tables, signatures, or letterheads. I mean, in an office where paperwork runs everything, you can't assume. So I made a small decision, one that would later come back in a big way. Whenever I found papers on the floor, I wouldn't throw them away. Instead, I'd pick them up, straighten the edges, and leave them on the corner of the nearest desk. That way, if they were important, the person would see them, and if not, they could toss them themselves. Simple, thoughtful, better safe than sorry. For months, it wasn't a problem. Nobody complained. If anything, I thought I was helping. Then one morning, everything changed. I was halfway through my rounds when I heard the sharp click of heels behind me. That was unusual. No one usually showed up this early. I turned around, and there she was. Sandra Blake, the building's office manager. Sandra was one of those women who always looked perfectly put together. Tailored blazer, hair in a sleek bun, red nails, the kind of confidence that made everyone else feel smaller. She didn't smile much. She didn't really need to. She was the kind of person who didn't ask for things. She instructed. "Good morning," I said, polite as ever. She didn't respond. Just walked into the office area, her heels echoing on the polished floor, then suddenly stopped. Her voice cut through the quiet like a whip. "Why is there trash on people's desks?" I blinked, genuinely confused. "Sorry?" She pointed at a few loose papers I'd placed neatly on one desk corner. "That trash on desks? Who's been doing that?" "Oh," I said quickly, realizing what she meant. "Those were on the floor when I came in. I wasn't sure if they were important, so I just set them aside for the employees to look over later." Sandra made a face like I'd just said something offensive. "Claire, no. Everything on the floor is trash. You don't need to think about it. If it's on the floor, it goes in the garbage." I hesitated, trying to explain calmly. "Well, sometimes papers fall accidentally." She cut me off. "People here aren't children. They don't drop important documents on the floor. You're overcomplicating your job. From now on, if it's on the ground, you throw it away. No exceptions." There it was. I stood there for a moment, quietly absorbing her tone. The kind that said, "I'm the boss, you're not." Then I nodded. "All right, Sandra. Everything on the floor is trash." She smiled faintly, satisfied, like she'd just restored order to the universe. "Good. Glad we understand each other." She turned on her heel and left without another word, and that, as far as she was concerned, was the end of it. But for me, it was the start of something else. As she walked away, I couldn't help thinking how strange it was. This woman who probably hadn't picked up a broom in 20 years was telling me how to do my job. Still, I wasn't about to argue. I've learned that sometimes the best response to arrogance is agreement. So I decided I'd follow her rule exactly as she'd said it. Word for word. If it's on the floor, it's trash. No second guessing. No rescuing papers. You want simple? Fine. You'll get simple. I didn't realize it then. But that small moment, that single sentence, would eventually lead to one of the most satisfying bits of poetic justice I've ever witnessed. Because a few weeks later, when everything fell apart, literally, Sandra would regret ever saying those words. But that, my friends, is the part of the story you'll want to sit down for. For now, I went back to work like nothing had happened. The office glowed under the fluorescent lights. The trash bins were empty, and the desks were spotless. Sandra went back to her air-conditioned office, proud of herself for setting the rules straight. And me? I just smiled to myself, because sometimes, when people underestimate you, the smartest thing you can do is let them. It's funny how quickly time passes when you're just doing your job and minding your business. A few quiet weeks went by after that conversation with Sandra, and honestly, I thought maybe things would just go back to normal. Same office, same silence, same rhythm. But peace never lasts long when someone's ego is involved. Each morning, I'd walk in at 5:30 a.m. sharp. The parking lot would still be empty, except for one flickering streetlight that made the whole place look like a movie set. Inside, the air smelled faintly of printer ink and stale coffee. My cart squeaked as I pushed it down the hall. Mop, rags, fresh liners, cleaning sprays. It's strange how a place feels different when no one's there. You start noticing the soul of the building, the hum of the air vents, the way papers flutter on desks when the AC kicks in. And of course, I noticed the papers on the floor again, only this time, I didn't touch them. Invoices, reports, even what looked like a printed contract near the copier. All of it went straight into the trash bag. Just like Sandra said, if it's on the floor, it's trash. Her words echoed in my head every time I lifted the lid. I won't lie, it felt wrong at first. Like I was doing something careless, but after the first few days I stopped thinking about it. Rules were rules, I was just following them. Then one Friday morning, everything changed. When I arrived, the office was unusually quiet, quieter than normal. There was this stillness in the air that made me uneasy. As I walked toward the accounting department, I saw it immediately. One of the big metal filing cabinets had tipped over. Drawers open, papers scattered everywhere, like a snowstorm of chaos across the floor. My jaw actually dropped. I had never seen a mess like that in all my years here. Hundreds of sheets of paper, invoices, reports, client files, contracts, all over the floor. Some were crumpled, some were half-soaked from a coffee spill nearby. It looked like a paper hurricane had just hit. I stood there for a long moment, my brain arguing with itself. Do I pick these up? Do I throw them out? Surely she didn't mean this kind of situation, right? But then I heard her voice in my head again, clear as day. Everything on the floor is trash. No exceptions. I even remember her exact tone, that superior condescending lilt. So, I did what she told me to. I cleaned it up. Every single paper. One by one, I gathered them, stacked them, and put them right where she said they belonged. In the trash bag. No questions. No doubts. It took 2 bags to fit everything. By the end, my back hurt, my gloves were covered in ink and dust, and the office floor looked spotless again. Mission accomplished. I left like usual. Locked the supply closet, signed out on my sheet, and went home. The next day was my day off. I was sipping coffee, scrolling on my phone, when my work cell started buzzing. The caller ID made me roll my eyes. Sandra. For a brief second, I actually debated not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. "Morning, Sandra," I said. Calm and polite as ever. Her voice, though, Oh, her voice was shaking. Claire, were you in the office yesterday morning? Yes, like every weekday, I said. Why? She exhaled loudly like she'd been holding her breath. The cabinet in accounting fell over. Important client documents were missing when we came in. Did you see any papers on the floor? I took a slow sip of coffee. Oh, yes. There were tons of them, all over the place. She paused. And what did you do with them? Now, I want you to imagine the dramatic pause that came next, because I took my sweet time before answering. I threw them out. What? Threw them out, I repeated, steady and calm. They were on the floor. You told me everything on the floor is trash. The silence on the other end of the line was Chef's kiss. You could almost hear the moment it clicked in her mind. Then came the stammering. But this was different. The cabinet fell over. Those were important. You should have known that. Oh, I said gently. But I didn't know that, Sandra. You said everything on the floor is trash. No exceptions. Remember? She went silent again. Then she snapped. Claire, this isn't funny. Those documents were confidential client records. You need to go through the dumpster and find them right now. Now, I'll admit, this was the part where I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I pictured her sitting there, red-faced, realizing her floor equals trash rule had just come back to bite her hard. I said, in the most professional tone I could muster, Sandra, the office opens in 15 minutes. I still have work to do. You might want to start looking before the garbage truck comes. She made this little growl sound, like a kettle about to boil over, and hung up on me. I smiled. Oh, this day was going to be interesting. The dumpster showdown later that morning. As I wrapped up my rounds, I knew I'd have to pass the dumpsters on my way to the car. Sure enough, there she was, Sandra in her perfect outfit, crouched beside a green dumpster with 2 other office workers helping her dig through black trash bags. It was glorious. Her blazer was off, her hair was falling out of its bun, and her pristine red nails were now smeared with dirt. She spotted me approaching, her expression switching instantly from panic to fury. Claire, she barked. Get over here. Help us look. Now, here's where poetic justice really shines. I had thought long and hard about what to say if this moment came, the perfect final nail in her managerial coffin. So I stopped a few feet away, looked her straight in the eye and said calmly and clearly, Ma'am, my job description is to take out the trash. Your job description is to ensure the safety and confidentiality of your client's files. Then I gave her a polite little nod, turned, and walked to my car. Behind me, I swear I heard the most cartoonish sound ever, like a frustrated villain scream straight out of a movie. I didn't look back. By the time I got home, I couldn't wipe the grin off my face. Sometimes, karma doesn't need grand gestures or shouting matches. Sometimes it just needs a little patience. And for people like Sandra, a mirror held up to their own arrogance. A few hours later, I got a text message. It was from Sandra. Effective immediately, there will now be a special inbox shelf for any papers found on the floor. Thank you. No apology. No explanation. Just quiet policy change, but I didn't need one. I already had my victory. In the end, I didn't lose anything. My job stayed the same. But Sandra? She lost something far more valuable. Her illusion of control. Because when you treat people like they're beneath you, don't be surprised when your own rules come back to haunt you. You know what's funny? Sometimes revenge doesn't need yelling, plotting, or chaos. Sometimes all it takes is doing exactly what someone told you to do. And in my case, that lesson came wrapped in the faint smell of printer ink and a dumpster full of regrets. The next morning, when I came in for my shift, the building felt different. Usually the office has this kind of predictable calm before the workday begins. Just the hum of the vending machines and the low buzz of the fluorescent lights. But that day I could feel the tension floating in the air. People were whispering, doors were closing faster, and every time I walked by a hallway, conversations would just stop. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or brace myself for round 2. Sandra's car was in the lot when I arrived, but I didn't see her anywhere. For someone who loved micromanaging, she was suddenly very invisible. So I just went about my job, sweeping, sanitizing, vacuuming, pretending like the whole world wasn't probably talking about the custodian who threw away the files. A few hours later, as I was cleaning the glass doors at the main entrance, I overheard a conversation between two employees. One said, "I heard Sandra made the cleaning lady throw out all the missing client files." And the other replied, "Yeah. And now the boss is making her write a new internal policy because of it." I almost laughed out loud. Imagine that. A manager writing a policy because she didn't think things through. By lunchtime, half the office knew the story. Some people looked at me with awkward sympathy. Others gave me small smiles as I passed by. But one thing was clear. The dynamic had shifted. Sandra wasn't the unshakable authority figure anymore. She was the woman who had to dig through a dumpster because her pride wouldn't let her admit she was wrong. 2 days later, I saw her again. She was standing by the copy machine, typing something into her phone, pretending to look busy. When she noticed me, she straightened up and gave me the kind of tight-lipped smile that could curdle milk. "Claire," she said. "A word?" I paused, pretending to think about it. Then I said, "Of course." She motioned toward her office. It was spotless. She'd clearly been cleaning herself or making someone else do it. Once the door shut, she took a deep breath. "Look," she started, "about the other day." "That was a misunderstanding," I raised an eyebrow. "A misunderstanding?" "Yes," she said quickly. "You shouldn't have taken my instructions so literally. You should have exercised better judgment." Ah, there it was. The classic deflection. The "I'm still right" defense. I smiled and said, "Well, Sandra, I figured if I didn't follow your instructions exactly, I might get written up again. I just wanted to make sure I was doing my job properly." Her face went pink, then red. "Claire, this isn't about me." "Oh, it's not?" I said softly. "Because from where I'm standing, it kind of seems like it is." She opened her mouth to respond but stopped. Her jaw clenched. For a few long seconds, the only sound in the room was the low hum of the ceiling vent. Then she sighed, sat down and said quietly, "You can go." I nodded, gave her a polite little, "Have a nice day," and left. That was the last personal conversation we ever had. Over the next few weeks, the new floor document policy was rolled out. They even gave it a name, the Floor Recovery Protocol. Basically, a little inbox shelf was installed right near the main copy area. A simple wooden rack labeled, "If found on floor, place here for review." That was it. My radical cleaning habit had now become an official system policy. Couldn't help but laugh when I saw it. For the first time, every employee in the building knew exactly why that shelf was there, and who had inspired it. Some called it Claire's corner, others, the lost and found shelf. But my favorite nickname came from one of the accountants. He called it the Trash Redemption Zone. I almost wanted to print that one out and tape it on the wall. The funny thing is, I never set out to get revenge. I just wanted to do my job, keep my head down, and not throw away something important by mistake. But pride makes people do stupid things. Sandra's pride was her undoing. She thought being in charge made her untouchable, that her words were commands carved in stone. But the truth? Power doesn't make you right, and humility doesn't make you weak. It just means you're smart enough to listen, patient enough to wait, and strong enough to keep your integrity when someone tries to take it from you. A few months later, the building got a new regional safety inspector. During their walkthrough, they noticed the new inbox shelf and asked who came up with the idea. One of the senior staff members pointed at me and said, "That was Claire. She came up with that system after an incident with some missing documents." The inspector nodded, impressed. "Smart idea. Should be standard in all branches. Would you believe it? That tiny shelf, born out of one woman's arrogance, became company. Policy. All because one manager couldn't admit she was wrong. Sandra never mentioned it. Again, she couldn't, but I could see it in her eyes every time she passed me in the hall. That quiet acknowledgement that I'd won, and not by fighting her. Not by yelling or arguing, but by simply doing what I was told, and letting the universe handle the rest. Some mornings, when I walk past the dumpster, I still think about that day. Sandra knee-deep in trash bags, desperate to save face. There's a kind of poetic balance in that image, because for years, she treated people like garbage, disposable, replaceable beneath her, and in the end, she found herself exactly where she'd put everyone else, in the trash. I used to think being a custodian meant just cleaning up after people, but sometimes it means cleaning up the messes they make of themselves. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to argue. All I had to do was follow instructions, and I'll be honest, there's a special kind of satisfaction in knowing that a lesson like that came from the person who least expected to learn it. Sandra thought she was teaching me discipline. Turns out, I was the one teaching her accountability. So, if you've ever been talked down to, dismissed, or treated like you're invisible, remember this. People who underestimate you are writing their own downfall. Your calm is their weakness. Your patience is their punishment. And your silence? That's your victory speech. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button, because I've got plenty more real-life tales where karma shows up right on time. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's poetic.